and welcome to our very first Drop Bears race recap. My name's Adam, trying something new tonight, so hope you like it. Pretty basic setup, but would really appreciate any feedback or encouragement. And if you like what you see, if you think we're a fun group to race with, love to hear from you via Facebook, send me a message. Always looking for more races to join the Drop Bears. So tonight we are looking at the Tour for All 2020 first stage. A very flat race, 2 laps of Tempest Fugit for the A and B graders. So not a lot of elevation here. Expecting it to be a pretty fast, pretty flat out sort of race from the very start. As you can see, we've got a pretty bumper field this evening. It's the 8-10 race, so 111 in the A and B grade, another 134 in the combined C and D grade. So plenty of riders on the road, expecting a pretty flat out event. So in terms of tactics for this one, with a big field, combined A and B grade, expecting it to be pretty much on from the start, usual blazing start, seeing those big A graders stringing out the field, and we'll break into some big blobs. It's going to be really critical for these riders to pay attention, stay attentive in these big groups, make sure that you don't get caught behind the wrong wheel, and maybe see gaps forming. I don't think we'll see anyone breaking off the front, but you never know. I do expect that it will go to a big bunch sprint. So it's going to be critical for these riders coming into those last couple of Ks to stay attentive, get up there in the first 5 to 10 wheels. You're not going to win from 40th wheel. Just really make sure that you got the legs in those last few 100 meters, and there's going to be a lot of positions up for grabs if it turns out like I think, and we've got a big blob going for the finish. Tonight, we've got 3 of our B grade Drop Bears racing. So members tonight, actually we've got Darren, unfortunately didn't manage to get connected, but we've got Donavan, Michael and Richard lining up for the B grade team. Again, as I said, in a mixed field here, so up against some big hitters in A and A plus grade. Have a look at a couple of these guys. So Donovan's coming straight off a big win in the Coa Sports League on Thursday morning, so he's full of confidence. As you can see, some great numbers here on his power to weight ratio. So on a bit of a roll is Donavan, set his best personal best average power in his last race. So looking for a good result from him. And we've also got Michael Pepper. So you can see Michael's been on a bit of a roll, been on the podium recently in 3 races, some big numbers in his raw wattage, which is going to suit this flat course through the desert. So I'm expecting that Michael's going to be our #1 drop bear tonight. In terms of the competition, as I mentioned, big field. The guy who I have picked out as my #1 pick is Viggo Moore from the US. Only a young guy if you go by his bio here, but wow, have a look at these results. 3 straight wins coming into this, so he's going to be full of confidence and some huge power numbers. This kid can ride, so I'll be looking up for him during the race. So Donavan, great call out on the start line. Some big guns in this tonight. This is going to hurt, and sure did, especially for Donavan. So great start from the team. You can see Donavan pumping out over 6 watts per kilo in the first few seconds, getting up in that front group, and he held it really well. Positioned himself nicely, got into the front bunch, but you can see 180 beats per minute on the heart rate minute at just 200 meters in. That number would stay pretty high for Donavan all through that race, but he did a great job here in these first few 100 meters getting in. You can see Michael's also in that big group, and our other drop bear, Cookie, will be in there as well. So brilliant start from the boys, made this front group. We had about 60 up the front here. And as you can see there, nice little blob, a few stragglers already dropping off the back. So the A grade is really putting that pace down, driving that front group. And so the race was obviously going to come down to these 60 odd from pretty early on. As you can see, we're only 2 Ks in, and that leading group is formed. So having a look at where our guys are sitting. So we've got Richard here, sitting pretty comfy, only 157 beats per minute in that front group. And now 3.9 Ks in, we've got sort of got an idea now that we've got about 58 in this bunch off the front, and looking pretty comfortable. So the boys did really well, sort of holding nice and steady. got an idea here of the bunch size. So Michael's up in 54th. We can see we've got about 60 off the front. Nice little picturesque shot of the guys going through the desert, this front group. And as we're sort of going through this first 10Ks, we will see my pick, Vigo. He was in amongst it. I'm just going to go and find him. Here he is, Vigo Moore, in that front group as we thought. So looking dangerous early on. Big group going through here. Let me move this. I'm losing my time slots. Starting to see a little bit of fracturing at the back of the field, a few dropping off one by one. This field is getting whittled down. I was a bit worried for my mate Damien here. On my screen, he was weaving all over the place. I thought he might have lost his connection or something. I don't know what it looked like on your screen, Donavan, but he held on well, stayed with the group, and we had all three of the drop bears still in the group about 20 minutes in, 16 Ks in, 20 Ks to go. The pace stayed really high all the way through, and you could see we're sort of dropping a couple off the back here. I was really surprised going back to realize it was actually my mate Vigo dropping 3 seconds off the back. We weren't expecting that. And then a little bit further up the road, we had the first of our major attacks. So we've got 2 up the road here in the distance. You might just be able to see, but they're all back together pretty soon after that. We had our first middle mini disaster for the drop bears at the 22K mark. So unfortunately, Michael had a little disconnect, as can happen on Zwift. So here he is dropping some big watts to try and get back onto that field. I thought he was absolutely gone. But sure enough, only 3Ks later, there he is back in the bunch, looking comfortable, only 157 beats per minute. And I also noticed that my mate Vigo has managed to close that 3-second gap, and he's up there as well. So we've got all the hitters still there in the front, half an hour in, starting to get to the pointy end of the race now. 26 Ks in, and here we had, I thought the most dangerous looking attack of the race. So we had Alejandro, I forget his last name, I think we'll see it in the next picture. So as we go past the dinosaur, really putting in some big watts, he opened up a 6-second gap. On his opposition, Gonzalez, there he is, way out in front, all in his own head of the chasing bunch, but it was to be short-lived. A couple of Ks later, he was back in the bunch, coming up to about 6 Ks to go now, and looked like that big bunch finish was going to eventuate. All right, 32 Ks in, so under the 5 Ks to go banner, such that it was now. We've got 48 left in the field. You can see we're starting to whittle it down to, the big man up the front. And with 4 Ks to go here, we've got all 3 of our AHDR drop bears. They're in the field contesting the finish, which was just fantastic. I spoke a bit too soon because it was only a couple of Ks later. Michael again had a dropout, stuck all back here on his own. That bunch was absolutely flying, and I thought for sure this was the end of his race. I managed to drop back and catch him on the screenshot, pulling some huge watts, trying to get back onto the finish. You can see over 8 watts per kilo, 2 Ks to go. Surely that's the end of it, but he's an absolute beast, this man. He got back in, and heading into the last couple of Ks now, we've got all 3 drop bears in amongst it as the pace starts to lift. I was starting to get a bit worried at this point. As you can see, the field is starting to string out here. Pace is up to 50 Ks an hour. They're really starting to push home these guys, inside a K and a half to go. Unfortunately for Richard, Michael, and for Donavan, looking a little bit too far back at this point. So I did switch my attention up to Vigo, my man, and you can just see the effect that this surge has had on the field, really stretching out over the road as we're heading to about 1 kilometre to go. Up at the front of the bunch now, in the really pointy end of the race. So you can see Vigo's made a little surge here, 11 watts per kilo. He's got himself up into this front group. A clever little tip there for anyone looking to learn how to Zwift race at this point. 800 meters to go, 600 meters to go or so. Just putting that little surge just to get himself in the right spot, but not going too far, not jumping off the front just yet. And at this point, just took a little bit of a breather. So back down to 350 watts. He's got himself exactly where he wants to be, sitting in what's about 6th wheel. I think it says 3rd on there. I think he was still sort of moving up. We can see here the first big attack of the sprint. There's 500 meters to go. Finn jumping on the pedals, 10.5 watts per kilo, really accelerating hard. He'd go off the front, jumped out very early, but caught the others napping a little bit. Here's my mate Vigo on the green Tron bike, really starting to put the head down and chase him down. So up to nearly 1100 watts here, 14.6 watts per kilo, just absolutely stunning numbers out in pursuit of the Aussie out the front. And they'd only get bigger. 1350 watts. He's pulled to the front of this group now. This bloke on the mountain bike I thought was one of the funniest things. I was so glad I got a shot of him. Tremendous effort on the mountain bike to be at the pointy end of the race at this point. But all eyes on Vigo versus Flynn. He's off chasing him, pulling huge watts. So you can see Finn off the front here. We've still got 400 meters to go, so he's gone very, very early. Still pulling a massive sprint here, 10.8 watts per kilo. Vigo's only 6.7, but I think he might just be biding his time. And here he goes, up to 17.9 watts per kilo. You can see all the orange numbers here. These guys really turning it on now in the last 300 meters. Vigo nearly up to 1300 watts. Out in chase of Finn, and then 200 meters to go. Makes the catch. You can see the banner for the finish up in the distance here. And some big power going on with the boys, trying to chase down these front two. But Vigo just too strong. You can see the gap is put in with about 50 meters to go. Bunch is completely strung out now. Still some big numbers here. Finn's been caught up and a few gobbling up. They chase hard, but they wouldn't quite get there. Vigo gets over the line in front. Gonzalez, our breakaway from earlier in the race, managed to come over the line on Zwift in 3rd. But we'll have a look on Zwift. Power, Vigo gets the win. Pichon from France in 2nd. Finn managed to hold on to 3rd after opening up from 500 meters out. Huge effort. Really interesting numbers here from Vigo. Didn't top any of these metrics, just sort of looks middle of the pack, but just positioned himself so well. Applied that power at just the right time and got the win by about half a second. For the AHDR boys, so fantastic effort in a mixed bunch. As I mentioned, they're all B graders in a mixed A plus B bunch. Managed to hold on to the front of the race. Tremendous work. Huge shout out to Michael Pepper. Dropped off a couple of times, chased back on, including one in the final 2 kilometers. Tremendously hard to come back from that, but he stuck on, got up into 30th position and back down the field, 41st and 42nd, Richard and Donavan. So big shout out to Richard, great effort. Got a bit of a rankings boost and a fantastic effort to hold on to their very fast bunch and a great result. So hope you enjoyed that. A little race recap. If you like what you see, think you might have some fun racing with the drop bears, drop me a message and we'd love to hear from you. Catch you later.